Hey class, this video is in response to your reading reflections dealing with deontology. In this particular case, I asked you to apply deontological ethics to a particular situation in history, namely dropping the atomic bomb on both Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. So let me give you a couple of reminders and just some things about deontology that might help moving forward and maybe especially helpful for your CAP paper at the end of the week. Just like utilitarianism, deontology is a way of reasoning. It is not a set of conclusions, right? So it's possible that deontologists would disagree with one another. What makes them deontologists is not the conclusion they come to, but the logic they use to get to that moral conclusion, the way they think through moral decision-making and moral judgments, right? So one difference, though, is that deontologists tend to agree more than utilitarians. And there's a reason why. Utilitarians base it on consequences, and as you know, consequences are uncertain. We're not exactly sure which economic policy will benefit the most people. We're not sure which military strategy will kill the fewest number of people, right? We don't always know that, and so utilitarians can disagree about what the consequences will actually be and therefore disagree with one another. But deontologists end up agreeing more with each other because it's not based on consequences which are uncertain. It's based on a principle, right? The categorical imperative. Will everyone do what I'm thinking about doing? Okay? So because it's principle-based, not outcomes-based, there's often more agreement within those communities. But there's still room for disagreement. So let's go to the situation at hand. World War II is dragging on. Japan has attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States then feels justified in defending itself and going to war with Japan. Japan refuses to surrender even after they see us dropping an atomic bomb out in the ocean. They see the devastation, and so we say, if you don't, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do it to your country, right? Drop the bomb there. And so they refuse. And so the idea is, well, what do? Right? We can let the war linger on. We can get into a land war with Japan, and who knows how many lives and what the cost would be, or we could just sort of end it by dropping the bomb. So they drop it, and then they drop another. Japan surrenders. It's over. The deontologist would look at the situation, though, and say, it is immoral. Almost every deontologist would say it is immoral for the United States to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the reason is that you targeted innocents. These are innocent civilians. You're dropping it on cities, destroying whole populations within those cities. And remember, you cannot use someone as a means to an end in deontology. It is always wrong to use a person as a means to an end. In this case, you're taking innocent Japanese lives, innocent civilians, who have nothing to do with the war, who in many respects have nothing to do with Pearl Harbor, children, right? People who are opposed to their government but just happen to live in Japan and all that. You're taking these people and you're using them as a means to an end. By killing them, it's a means to ending the war quickly, right? Another way to think about it is the end, stopping the war, justifies the means, killing innocent lives. The deontologist is against that logic. The end does not justify the means for deontologists. In fact, your means have to be just as noble as your ends. Whatever end you're aspiring to morally, the means you take to get there have to be just as moral, just as holy, just as righteous as the end you seek. It's okay for you to kill combatants, according to deontology. So when the military attacks Pearl Harbor, the deontologist says, can we will that every person have the right to defend themselves against aggression? Yes. The United States can defend itself. It can go after the military, right? It can do what it needs to do to protect itself, but it cannot target those that are not combatants, because now it's not about justice, We're not going after those that actually attacked us. Now for the deontologist, it becomes about revenge, using people as a means to an end, and that's wrong. Another way to say it for the deontologist is, can we will that every country intentionally target innocents, right, for its goals? Can we will that China intentionally target innocents and kill innocents to achieve its military goals? Can we will that Al-Qaeda intentionally targets innocents to achieve its military goals? I think our argument would be no, we can't will that. If we can't will other countries to intentionally target innocents, dropping bombs on innocent people, then we cannot do it either. We can't universalize it, so we cannot do it, right? Your means have to be as righteous as the ends you seek. So that's the way a deontologist is going to think through dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, a deontologist will have no problem with World War II fighting Japanese or going after Hitler, but how we go about it matters, and the way they went about it with those two bombs in their mind is wrong. What about a utilitarian? This is very interesting. An act utilitarian, who's looking at each individual situation in isolation, would say, does dropping the bombs stop the war quicker? Does it save more lives overall? Is it cheaper overall? Okay, do it. It's moral. Clearly, the utilitarian, the act utilitarian says, drop the bombs, stop the war, save more lives overall. A land war in Japan might kill twice as many. It might cost 8 times as much, and it might last months and months longer. Just end it. A rule utilitarian would look differently at this. They want to say, can we make Hiroshima and Nagasaki, can we make bombing innocent cities a rule for everyone to follow? Would that rule maximize overall good consequences for the most? And I think most rule utilitarians are going to say, this is not a good rule to set, not a good precedent to set for other countries, right? I mean, Iran and Israel are engaged in combat for years and decades, and Iran gets a hold of a nuclear weapon or a weapon of mass destruction and says, well, if we set that off in Jerusalem, we can end the war tomorrow, right? We don't want to set that kind of precedent. We certainly don't want Al-Qaeda flying planes into buildings filled with innocent people, even though Al-Qaeda sees themselves at war with the United States, feels that the United States has been aggressive to them in various ways. We think that's wrong, right? We don't want to set this precedent, and so our rule utilitarian, I think, wants to say, if we make this a rule, we're kind of opening Pandora's box with regard to killing innocent people, so we shouldn't do that. That's the way I would see it from a rule utilitarian standpoint. So various ways of thinking through this issue, and I'm curious how you sort of thought through it and argued as utilitarians and deontologists. Again, the class is going very well. I'm really enjoying the discussion. If you have any response to this post or anything else, let's keep the conversation going. I'll see you guys online.